Hello from the University of Greater Manchester, England. Welcome to our pre-recorded talk, Escape Room Development, the Teacher, the Developer and the Student. Today we will speak with you about how we have incorporated digital escape rooms into pre-registration clinical skills teaching. We will give 3 different perspectives of the development, with a focus on pedagogical design and practical implementation challenges. If you have any questions, we will be available for live questions and answers on Friday's live Q&A session. Let me introduce you to the team. Annaliese McClellan and Kirsty Clouston are lecturers in Clinical Skills, School of Nursing and Midwifery, Health Science and Society. Susannah Rawlinson, MSc Nursing student, and Graeme Prescott, who works with Annaliese and Kirsty as an e-learning developer. Let's get started.
Hello from the University of Greater Manchester. You've just met our avatar Sue, who is a new feature within our escape rooms, and we'll talk about her a little later when we talk about the escape room development. Myself and Kirsty, who you'll hear from a little bit later, are both lecturers within the clinical skills team in pre-registration nursing. And our team is constantly thinking of new and innovative ways to scaffold learning that is reflective of real-world practice for our nursing students. Traditionally, clinical skills teaching is taught and practiced in simulation suites, and we didn't want something to replace this, but we did want something new to engage the learners that could be accessed remotely and incorporated critical thinking and decision-making. This is where our escape rooms have come in. Nursing students need to develop critical thinking and decision-making, which translates into the busy environments that they'll be working in, and they're often working under pressure. Escape rooms create a perfect way to challenge learners and develop these skills. Digital escape rooms support experiential learning, critical thinking and teamwork, and that we've been able to embed clinical reasoning tasks with game-based learning, which encourages learners to interpret symptoms, prioritise interventions, and apply theoretical knowledge in a safe learning environment. Over the last 3 years, we've created and developed and incorporated digital escape rooms to complement clinical skills teaching. Creating escape rooms has become a passion of ours, and we're constantly looking at ways to improve and incorporate other technologies to improve the patient's experience, such as AI. I will now hand you over to Kirsty, who will talk you through how we started.
So we didn't have a defined starting point for our escape room journey. We started out on Google Forms, but were quite quickly introduced to Articulate, which is an authoring software tool. We started by developing a single patient scenario with codes which linked to clinical skills and tasks. These codes were closely linked to real-world results. For example, a code collected might be linked to a urine output formula, which would be needed to view a fluid balance chart. We felt it was important to add this level of gamification into the escape rooms to move away from traditional e-learning packages. To give depth to our escape rooms, a clinical story had to be created to contextualise the condition or disease to be explored. This gave a certain level of realism for our learners, but also allowed us to control the level of complexity explored and match this to our learning outcomes. I'll just hand you back to Annaliese to tell you a bit more about the development.
We've come a long way with our escape rooms over the last 3 years. But initially, when we first embedded the escape rooms into our teaching, as with anything new, we evaluated it. We received feedback, good and bad. We took the evaluations on board and we started to make changes. What we didn't want was the game mechanics or the technology to interfere with the learning. But myself and Kirsty knew there was limitations to our IT skills and we needed help. This is why our relationship with Graeme was formed. Graeme works within the university's Moodle department, and you'll hear from him a little later. Graeme mentored us on software and its capabilities and helped bring our digital patients to life, showing what was possible in a digital space. We did receive feedback about time pressures and the fact our escape rooms don't have a back button, but this was intentional and we chose to keep this as it reflects real life clinical practice for healthcare professionals. What we did develop was adding in hints and tips and feedback from our AI character to help the player and point them in the direction of further reading to assist them in finding the answers themselves. I'll just hand you to Kirsty, who'll talk about where we are now.
So where we are today, we have developed our escape rooms into multi-patient scenarios, and this has been possible obviously with the help of Graeme, but obviously with exploring our capabilities for content within our curriculum, which is always linked to the NMC code and proficiencies. We've been able to progress these, obviously with mentorship from Graeme, and without that we wouldn't have been able to proceed because they have increased and grown so much in the last 3 years. We've also incorporated Sue, who's our AI guide, who speaks to the player throughout the scenario, provides feedback and adds to that interactivity. Sue also represents a supervisor role, which learners are familiar with in clinical practice. And I think you met Sue at the start of our presentation. I think here it's important to mention that the escape rooms never ever run in isolation. There's always a member of the clinical skills team on hand when they're timetabled who can help students who might get stuck or forget to write down a code. We all of us recognise that digital literacy has limits for everybody, and there's also the time constraints when we're timetabling these. All of our scenarios are housed on a virtual hospital, which has been purposely built and designed within our team and an external company, and that is built as a digital hub to house our content. I'll just talk you through our next slide about what's in the escape rooms. So in our escape rooms, we've got lots of different elements to them. And I think that me and Annaliese have realised that anything is possible with these, but we think that Graeme probably would say differently. We like to talk through our ideas with Graeme and send him some resources, and then he shows us what's possible in the digital world. But what we've realised is that teamwork really is key. In our escape rooms, we're able to touch upon multiple subject matters within one game, and the tasks are representative of real-world activities which happen within a range of healthcare settings, not just hospitals. We also include community or care homes as well. And as you can see, we've not just included clinical tasks on this list in front of us. So we've got things such as News 2 scores, medicine administration, injection techniques, fluid balance charts, to name but a few, but also we use communication activities such as communicating with other members of the multidisciplinary team, SBAR handovers, which shows that the softer skills of nursing can also be practiced in a virtual environment. All of our escape rooms include our learners completing a reflective piece or an action plan, and that solidifies the learning that's taken place in that escape room, making it contextual and contemporary. It also helps our students to plan any future learning they might need in clinical practice. So if they, for example, do a manual blood pressure in an escape room and then they practice it within a simulation face-to-face with us, they can also then make an action plan for their future learning in their next placement. So it sort of scaffolds learning on many different levels. I'll just hand you back to Annaliese to talk to you about our role.
So our role within the escape rooms is to create the patients, the healthcare environment and their stories, and we have to map the relevant clinical skills which need to be included for the stage of the programme the students will be accessing the content in line with their clinical skills teaching. To make our patient stories, we use our own clinical experience, which helps with realism. We include a social history, a background, relatives, and this gives the learner a more holistic view of the patient's story. As our students progress through the programme, the patient's complexity will increase, and that's where our multiple patient escape rooms come in. We start to develop puzzles and codes which are relevant to the patient's condition. So, for example, a patient's blood results combined with their News 2 score could formulate a code to open a medicine cabinet to administer the correct medication. We've now created escape rooms with patients that have cardiovascular disease, alcohol dependence, cancer, stroke, and there's many more. And this enables our students to explore a wide variety of conditions and nursing activities involved in the care of these patients. We do try to include documents that the students see in clinical practice. And with this, we need to make sure that our escape rooms are up to date. So for anyone working in healthcare, you'll know the importance of evidence-based practice, and that's vital. So we do spend quite a lot of time changing and updating our content. Our role is also to onboard the learners to use the escape rooms. When the learners complete the escape rooms, they receive a certificate of completion. And as Kirsty has said, our learners complete a reflection or an action plan of future learning, and we provide the students with feedback on this. I'll just hand you over to Graeme, who'll talk about the development process.
Hello, thanks, Annaliese. Developing the escape rooms has been much a learning journey for myself as an e-learning developer, as it has been for Annaliese and Kirsty. I've kind of learned a lot about clinical workflows and procedures, whereas Kirsty and Annaliese has learned from me about the digital side of things and how we kind of work together to translate the real world, the clinical workflows into the digital world. So yeah, it's been a really kind of exciting learning journey for myself, and I feel like I've actually undergone the nursing training, as it were, through being a kind of a developer on the escape room journey. One of the critical things when designing the escape rooms was the choice of the technology and platforms that we use to deliver the escape rooms. As Annaliese said, we have gone for a piece of software called Articulate Storyline, which I've been using for a good number of years to create kind of very static learning content for the university. But working with Annaliese and Kirsty has kind of led me down a new avenue to develop more interactive scenarios. So I feel as though this has kind of enhanced my skills as well. We use Articulate because it's accessible. It becomes easy to use, and I'm sure Annaliese and Kirsty will agree that they've become quite familiar with the platform now through developing the many escape rooms that we have. We noted earlier that we actually deploy the escape rooms to a virtual hospital platform, and we also deploy them into Moodle courses as what we call SCORM objects from Articulate. Most of the escape room design is scenario based, and it's based on kind of patient journeys. And my job has to be as kind of incorporate scenario-based learning and interactive features into the escape rooms that will support the learning journeys and also support the learning outcomes. Innovation and scalability and ongoing development has been key. Innovation in the fact that we're now incorporating AI into the escape rooms in the form of avatars to guide the learner through various parts of the escape room. The scalability, the software gives us the scalability to develop more interactive content, and it's only really limited by our imagination, I would imagine, and our kind of skills in building the interactivity into the escape rooms. Our ongoing development, we would like to use more AI features in the escape rooms and to make them more interactive. Okay, I'd like you to hand you over to Susannah, who will give you the student perspective on the escape rooms.
Hi, I'm Susannah, fourth year undergraduate nursing student. I first used escape rooms as a novice learner at the end of my first year in summer 2023. I started university the previous September when COVID was still a concern, so my digital literacy was improving due to blended learning and online teaching packages, but without the gamification. I also needed to log in to new apps and IT systems in university and the hospital, which is all part of being a student nurse. My initial thoughts back in year one, when I first heard the words escape room, were it sounds a bit scary and exciting at the same time. Will the room fill up with water and I drown? Will I be trapped? Is there enough time to do it? And still, every time I hear the words escape room, I do think about being against the clock. But linking this with my future nursing practice, I will also be against the clock, so it is realistic to have a time limit. And how nurses care for each patient is a real-life type of puzzle where we piece together information from different sources to deliver person-centred care. My first experience of the escape room is I couldn't stop the programme or go back. I panicked about the time, and I didn't realise how important it was to take notes and write down measurements, which were used in codes to move on to the next task, although we were told to do so. Just like real-life patients, you take observations, including blood pressures and pulses, and depending on what you find, depends on what you do next. And just like real-life nursing, documenting is essential. For our escape rooms, writing notes was also important because we were asked to produce a reflection for each escape room and submit it by a certain time of day along with our certificates. Reflecting on practice is a requirement of UK nursing registration, so it ties in nicely with that. The first time experience of the escape room was the hardest because it's unfamiliar territory, but after that one, you engage more and enjoy the experience. The escape rooms allowed me to work alone with a patient with no interruptions from my peers and bring together several clinical skills and apply theory to work out what to do next. Help is always on hand from teaching staff via email, and you can't move on until you complete that level, but you're learning as you go along because new medical concepts are introduced and there are links to further information. I find the escape rooms engaging because they are interactive and they prepare you for the real world because it orders the tasks into a storyline. You feel invested because it is tailored to national policies and UK guidelines. And some of the actors are people who you recognise from our own clinical skills team. And these familiar faces help you engage and help with memory when debriefing after the scenario. Actors use some terms local to Manchester, such as place names and phrases, which improves engagement because it is tailored to our university. I've actually reread some of my first year reflections, and they show where I've gone much deeper into finding out about different medical terminology, procedures and diseases after the escape rooms. This is realistic to my existing and future practice, where you come across something new, such as mitral valve stenosis, and gain some knowledge at the time whilst with the patient, but only later do you have time to seek out more knowledge and understanding to become a better practitioner. For me, the reflections and debriefs help me apply higher level thinking skills. In my fourth year, I spent some time with the clinical skills teams on a teaching placement. Repeating the escape rooms before face-to-face simulations helped me reinforce my knowledge and showed me how far I'd come. It gives you confidence and a sense of satisfaction when you have another go and solve the puzzles with more ease. And I do learn from repetition. So being able to have another go in my own time would have been particularly useful in year one and is something that the university now offers to current students. I can see how the team has acted on feedback from students and improved the packages with extra help links and the avatar. But I understand more about the limitations of our specific software, such as not having a back button, because I've been involved in the teaching process. For myself as a learner, I find escape rooms great to use as a learning tool because I can apply and improve knowledge of my clinical skills learning without harming any real-life patients. They create a bit of tension and they are challenging. So it's actually rewarding to escape and download the certificate. And because it's tied in with debriefing and reflection, further learning and development occurs. I'm now going to hand you back to Annaliese. Thank you for listening.
Susannah. So throughout our escape room journey, we've had many challenges, but we'll just touch on a few of them today. I'm just going to talk about the time. So it can take a couple of months to develop an escape room. As we know in education, we're wearing many hats and we're managing busy workloads. But it definitely helps that the team that are working on these, we enjoy creating them. But first of all, we create a template on PowerPoint, which myself and Kirsty build out the patient and the story and what needs to be included. And that goes backwards and forwards for a number of weeks. And then Graeme starts to help us build out the puzzles, improve the aesthetic of the escape room and the mechanics of the gaming. We go through a bit of a troubleshooting phase and testing stage before the learners undertake them. I'll just hand you over to Graeme now.
One of the major innovations that we've incorporated are the AI avatars. They're absolutely fantastic, and they bring that level of a kind of realism into the escape room. But one issues that we have come across is that the content moderation policies of the platform that we use, which is called Synthesia, tend to block certain medical terminologies, and they deem it as giving medical advice rather than stating a learning activity. So that has prevented us from kind of using them as much as we would like within an escape room. And I know that Annaliese and Kirsty have to carefully reword the actual script that we need the avatar to speak, so it doesn't kind of be flagged as giving medical advice under the content moderation policies of Synthesia. But that being said, they are a great device to bring that extra level of realism into the escape rooms, and the students really love them. Another issue that we found is the deployment of the escape rooms. Sometimes when we deploy to Moodle rather than the virtual hospital, we're restricted to a 512 megabyte upload limit on Moodle. And by the very nature of the escape rooms, they contain a lot of video content, which does kind of increase the file sizes. So we have to be very careful of the amount of video that we include in the escape room to keep them under that 512 megabyte level, so we're able to upload to Moodle. The virtual hospital is kind of different, where we have an increased file limit on there, so it's not kind of as critical. But if we're using the same escape room on the virtual hospital and on Moodle, we have to slightly tweak the Moodle version of it to fit within the Moodle file upload limits.
So I'll just round up now. So obviously our escape rooms take time to develop, and there will always be challenges that we meet along the way. Our packages, as we've said, are constantly under review and development, but as part of that, we've also been able to build on existing content. As we mentioned earlier, as evidence-based practice change, we have to adapt our content, sometimes quite drastically. But with that, we've been able to develop our subject matter along with experts from different fields. And I think that's probably where our future's heading. And maybe it will see some sort of multidisciplinary escape rooms starting to emerge as well, which I think could be really beneficial for our learners. In our experience, our escape rooms are really well received by our learners. I think they do add real value to our teaching. And most importantly, I think we do listen intently to our student voice, and we really value our learners' feedback and evaluations. And today you've heard from Susannah, who is one of our many student voices, regarding her experience of escape rooms. And we really do hope that this will inspire others to start creating escape rooms or build on things that you've already done. I think our top tip would be to give it a go. It is possible. We probably didn't think it would be when we started out all those years ago. It might start out with an idea on a piece of flip chart paper, maybe like me and Annaliese did, and progress to Google Forms and then turn into something even bigger. I think the one important thing is that it does take teams. So find others that are passionate to help you along the way. I think I personally would say we're really lucky to work with a team who sees this vision and is able to realise it and understand. We understand each other so well if they've had an idea and we're able to talk it through on paper, and that's really important. If you've got any questions, we are hoping to be available on the live question and answer session on Friday's live session, and we really hope to see you then. We want to thank you for listening today. We really hope that this has been useful, and we look forward to seeing everybody else's ideas in escape rooms on this conference. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.